One of the foremost generals of antiquity, Hannibal Barca, remains one of the most influential and oft-studied military leaders in history. A member of the Carthaginian aristocracy, Hannibal proved his military genius during the Second Punic War, during which time he defeated the Romans in a series of Pyrrhic victories, often decisively defeating the Roman army in the field as well as at the case at Cannae, where the Roman army was essentially annihilated. However, without the desired capitulation of Rome. Despite Hannibal's ultimately inability to bring a favorable end to the Second Punic War, his victories and his brilliant leadership nonetheless brought him an enduring legacy, and even the Romans begrudgingly paid respect to his unrivaled abilities in the battlefield. But what made Hannibal such an effective leader? To begin, Hannibal was extremely bold, a vital quality in any good general. The most obvious example being, of course, his famous crossing of the Alps, which was as unexpected as it was clever. Although Hannibal was not the first general to cross the Alps with an army, he was the first to do so with a foreign army, having otherwise no great familiarity with the terrain. This was truly a psychological feat as well, as Hannibal took an incredible risk by crossing the otherwise unmapped mountainous chain filled with hostile tribes, only to find himself in the land of the enemy. Hannibal's boldness, however, was matched by an equally careful preparation. It is highly likely that Hannibal had given a great deal of thought to crossing the Alps a year before the act, and it is likely that Hannibal spent much time building connections and gaining knowledge about the route he would take. Most appropriately, however, Hannibal had a keen ability to use his resources to build a psychological profile of his enemies, much as he did at the Battle of Cannae, when he baited the rash Gaius Terentius Varro into a double envelope, virtually annihilating his nearly 80,000-man strong army. Hannibal's victory, which was so terrifyingly effective, he massacred some 20% of Rome's total manpower, and would not have been without careful research. The Carthaginian, using a vast, well-oiled spy network, was able to understand his opponent's basic psychological profile, and using this to his advantage, he was able to draw his rash enemy into the pre-planned battleground, whose topography and terrain had been carefully vetted just for the purpose. If boldness and proper planning are key aspects of any military success, then charisma is the glue that holds things together. Hannibal understood his men and used this to his advantage. During his 15-year campaign in Italy, not once did his multi-ethnic army mutiny. Hannibal not only gained the trust of his troops, he was able to win their admiration and respect. He slept on the same circumstances as men, that is often on the cold, hard ground. He ensured his men were well fed before battle. He was also exceedingly observant, taking note of the attitude of his soldiers, and was able to give strategic speeches to bring up their spirits. He also had a keen sense on how to motivate his men, offering both land and booty if they could win the war. Hannibal's keen sense of people extended to making alliances. Hannibal's actual overarching strategy was to undermine the cohesiveness of Rome's alliances with its Italic neighbors. Although Hannibal was not ultimately successful in this regard, spelling the doom for the Second Punic War, he was able to make sufficient alliances to ensure supplies, a vital if underrated aspect of warfare, as well as replenish his manpower, as his constant campaigning throughout the Italian peninsula would eventually mean his entire army was virtually replaced by the end of the war.